All right, we're live. What is up, every single person in here? The call has just started for those asking in the chat. But so first things first, this is the third sprint call where Joey will be going over a thread training that he has iterated on a few different times and it is very useful. So I want to preface with that this applies to like any medium form or even long form content. It can be what we talk about here. I want you to also think of it like how it applies to something like YouTube, or how it applies to something like a newsletter, or how it applies to a blog, or a Instagram carousel, right? Because the principles, I really like Twitter threads in specific because it forces you to think of like, okay, here's the hook. This is what people are going to see. And then they have to click. Right? So you have to be persuasive enough and impactful enough and creative enough to get them to click. And then as you're leading them through the thread, it's multiple different tweets, right? So for those that don't know what a thread is, it's like one tweet and then a reply and then a reply and then a reply. And when you're writing a thread, you're kind of forced to think, okay, how am I going to hold attention the whole way down? When you're just writing a blog post or even like a YouTube outline, you may not think about that. And it really helps to learn how to write first, in my eyes at least. There's more ways to go about it, but it helps to learn how to write first and then start to transfer the principles that you learn from thread writing to something like YouTube or speaking or a newsletter or something else. So that is first thing, is that this is applicable to more than just Twitter, because I know many of you may not want to do Twitter. That's perfectly fine. The other thing is that the bonus call that I mentioned in the last video, because I stopped the call, that was a mess, and we're going to do an extra Q&A call, and that will be on Wednesday the 31st, because I'll be gone the Monday weekend. So next call, the fourth call, is going to be on Wednesday, and then a week after that on the Wednesday is going to be the last Q&A call and a bonus. Okay, so that was updated in the dashboard itself. So when you log into the sprints section of the dashboard, you can see that in the accelerator call schedule. And yeah, and then there'll be an email as well to let you know when it's going on and just give you a reminder. And of course, the recording will be uploaded. Okay, so with all of that prefaced, Joey, the floor is yours.
Sounds good. Let us start the screen share. I always love that. That is awesome. Okay. Cool. So, Dan, can you see my screen? Oh, okay. Cool. Let me know, guys, can you hear me? See my screen? Testing. You can hear me? Okay, cool.
Sorry, I was looking at the, yeah, I can hear you.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we're good. I was pushing the wrong button.
Nice.
Webinar Jam sucks, so I'm never using this again. Don't use Webinar Jam.
Okay, cool. So, hey everyone, I'm Joey Justice. As I said before, and when I introduced myself before, I have been a ghostwriter as one of the main things that I've been doing for the past year or so. Over that time, I've written over 500 Twitter threads. I'm probably responsible for over 1 million followers gained and maybe more than that in revenue, but we don't track those numbers, so I wouldn't actually know. But today I want to go over how I write those Twitter threads without absolutely losing my mind, because a lot of people, we've noticed, kind of overcomplicate them. They get intimidated by them, and it takes them way too much time. So I want to show you a good system that I've developed over time where it helps me ideate and flesh out Twitter threads really quickly, even if I don't know too much about the topic. So for those who are beginners, what is a Twitter thread? Well, kind of like Dan said before, like this is a thread. So you would see this tweet on your timeline, and this is what's called a hook. A common mistake that people make with their hooks is they don't end the hook with a colon. This is what lets people know that there's more to come. Now, another mistake is that people in their thread with, or in their hook with the word thread in all caps, or they'll have the thread emojis and stuff like that. You don't need to do that. That doesn't look good. Just use this framework where it's a sentence, 2 sentences, 3 sentences. That's not terribly important, but always make sure you're ending it with a colon. So then you get into the meat of the thread where you have what I call body tweets. And body tweets, so you see here, Justin says that he's going to give you 7 principles. So you have number 1, what it is, information about it. You could have 1 tweet per point. You could have multiple tweets per point. That kind of depends on how long the thread is going to be, how in-depth you're going to get, and things like that. You'll kind of dial that in over time. Typically, if I'm writing a thread that has 5 or more points, then I'll limit each point to only have 1 tweet. Whereas if it's a shorter thread or a shorter list of things that I'm sharing, so say 2 or 3 concepts, I'm going to add more tweets to flesh those out. So that's how you kind of balance that there. So you scroll through the thread, you see here's the 2nd point, 3rd point, so on, so forth. Then you get down here to the conclusion of the thread, but you're not saying in conclusion. The best way to summarize a thread like this is to write what is called a summary tweet, which is where you have a one-liner of the hook, and then you have a list of the points. So again, those are coming from this right here. And I'll show you how to do that here in just a minute, but I wanted to show a completed thread first. Justin's a good friend of mine. I thought that this was a good thread, so I'm using this as an example. And then finally, at the end of the thread, you have a CTA, a call to action. Now, typically, you're going to ask people to follow you, put in your name to make that easy. You can also say, if you like this thread, please retweet it to help others. Having this part about helping others, when I write a thread for somebody, I typically say, please retweet this thread to help another person. That's a little psychological thing because it's basically getting people to think of, oh, I'm going to help someone else. I'm not helping the creator. I'm helping another person who follows me. And that's just a little psychological thing that can increase your retweet rate a little bit. Now, of course, your CTA can depend on what you actually want to promote. So you see Justin's promoting a waitlist for his program. You can do that. You could do a newsletter. You could do other things. That just depends on what your value stack is, like how many different things you have, whether you have a newsletter or an offer or a calendar, landing page. That's kind of a whole other discussion. There's different ways to do that. If you want to learn more about that, you could ask about it in one of our 2 Q&A sessions. But I'm just saying you can have a second CTA here. So with that being said, how do you start writing a Twitter thread? So as I said on Wednesday, ChatGPT can be quite helpful. You don't have to use ChatGPT. And again, I do not take the raw output from any AI program, copy and paste that, and use it for threads, even threads for myself. One, I feel like that's unethical to a degree. My ghostwriting clients pay me to come up with content for them, not for ChatGPT to come up with content for me and me just copy and paste and send it. But also, ChatGPT needs a lot of hand-holding because the information it gives you might be a little bit off or something like that. So my point is it's very helpful, but what it does is it reduces the time and effort you need to research things. So the example that I like using when I talk about the system is a thread that I wrote for a fitness coach client who wanted a thread about blood pressure. Now, I've had high blood pressure in the past, but I didn't know too much about it. So I turned to ChatGPT. Now, in case you're very anti-AI or something like that, you can just use Google. That's totally fine. You could literally ask Google the questions that I'm going to ask ChatGPT. But the thing is that as you can see here, when you ask a question, you're getting a list. You're getting distilled information, which can help you go through this process much faster. Whereas if I search for this term in Google, you'll see like, okay, I got ads here. I got to scroll past. I got articles. I got lists. Like I got to like actually go and click into things and then go back and then click others and go back. And it just takes a lot more time. So let's get started. Now, one of the best tools in my arsenal that I use every day is a program called Drafts. I highly recommend this program if you are on a Mac. I don't think it's on Windows or anything else. But I'm going to show you the sole reason why I use this app. Of course, it is minimal, which is very nice. But let's say this is a sentence. Okay. Down here, you may have a hard time seeing it, especially if you're watching this on mobile. But down here, it tells you how many characters you have. 18 characters, 4 words. That's cool. But what if I highlight that? 18S. That means I have 18 characters selected. And that is very useful when I'm writing a Twitter thread, because on Twitter, you have a character limit of 280 characters. Yes, there are the longer tweets, but we're not talking about those today. And the Twitter schedulers like Tweet Hunter and Hype Fury and the others, they aren't able to post those to the timeline yet. So they just don't have that functionality. So for our purposes, we're still going to consider that Twitter has a character limit of 280 characters. And so the point is, when I'm writing a Twitter thread, I need to make yeah.
Your screen is still on ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah, I'm sharing Firefox. Okay. Yeah, it only let me share one thing. So, docs. Okay, well, you won't be able to see drafts because apparently I can only share one screen at a time, but that's fine. So the app Drafts that I'm talking about is a very minimal text editor. Mac only. And so the thing that's cool about it is that down in the bottom right-hand corner, it will tell me when I select, say when I select this sentence, it tells me how many characters I have selected. And I just explained why that was really important. So check that out, or I'm sure you can find some other way of doing that. I think Microsoft Word, if anybody still uses that dinosaur, I think that'll do it too. So that's just a helpful thing to do so that when I go schedule content for myself or my clients, I don't have the issue of, oh, this is like 48 characters over, and now I have to sit here and try to figure out how to rework it. And the client already approved this one version, but it's just a mess. So my point is, make sure that you have got your tweets under 280 characters each. And then one final thing that people don't know about is these dots, which is Option +8 on your keyboard for Macs. Dots look way better than dashes when I'm writing lists. Like you'll see here in a second. Dots look a lot better, but dots are a special character. So dots are 2 characters. So, and drafts and other programs won't tell you that. So for every dot that you have in your tweet, add 1 character for that. So if your tweet's already 280 characters, but your tweet has 5 dots in it, then you have to subtract 5 characters to account for that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so let's start on our thread. So our thread is going to be about how to lower blood pressure naturally. So we'll do X ways. This is just a very basic beginner hook to get us started. 8 X ways to lower blood pressure. Why do I keep doing that? We could say naturally. We could say without medication. We could say evidence-based if we're using research. I usually do. So then you're often going to have the second tweet, which is a lead. So that goes in between your hook and your body tweets. So this could be something, and now I'll start showing off an example. This is a thread that I wrote before about blood pressure. This right here is the lead. So what the lead does, you don't always have to have a lead. And if we notice from Justin's thread, he didn't have one. He got straight into point number 1, right? So for here, you'll see this has a lead, which gives more information. And typically with your lead, you want your lead to reinforce the point. You want to make people more compelled to read further. So here, since the thread's talking about ways to lower your blood pressure, I wrote the lead so that people understand the problems of having high blood pressure and all the risks that that involves. So basically what this lead is doing is it's saying, hey, this is a really big problem. You probably have it. And if you do have it, here's all of these issues, these risk factors that are associated with that problem. So here's how to fix it. If the thread was about something positive, like how to achieve something, then you could reverse that where the lead would be like, here's all the benefits of doing that thing. But that's kind of up to you. So that's the lead. And then we would get into the body tweets. And again, that's what these are. So over here with our example, we just put a question mark there for now. We would have body tweets. And this is a little hack that I developed that saved me a lot of time a while back, which is using X's. Now you're probably wondering, why are you doing that? Well, you'll see here in a second. So then our final tweet of the thread is going to be the summary. And then the actual final is going to be the CTA, but that's dependent upon like the client and what you want to do with your thread. I keep saying client because I'm approaching this as a ghostwriter who writes a lot of threads. Most of you don't have clients. You are your own client. Okay, so what do I do? I don't want it to be that big. So you're going to have your body tweets. Let's say we want to do 5. So we won't sit here for 40 minutes and write this whole thread. We'll do 5 points, right? But I still want to lead off these body tweets with the letter X. Well, why is that? That's because one of the things that I do in my threads is that in the summary, the points are always in ascending order of length. And you'll see what I mean about that in just a minute when we get those points and I write the summary. But starting off with X instead of 1 or a number saves me a little bit of time because I don't have to renumber them when I'm reorganizing them. Okay, so let's start making this a little bit clearer. We'll close that. Let's say we ask ChatGPT, what are ways to lower blood pressure without medication? So we see here, healthy diet. Where is it? That one. Improve your diet, exercise. I know another one is stop smoking. Then another one would be reduce sodium intake. And then another one would be moderate alcohol use. Okay. So if that's going to be the 5 body tweets, the 5 points of my thread, well, then this is going to be the summary, right? But again, I want this to look as nice as possible, as aesthetic as possible. So I'm actually going to rearrange these points so that they're like that, and then I'm going to number them. So I copy and paste that, and then copy and paste the hook. And so my summary tweet's now written. This is the summary tweet. That's completely done. So we'll bold that. We'll say that hook is good enough, and we'll call that done. So those 2 tweets are both done. So that little thing I did with the X's made it so that when I went to rearrange these, it saved me a lot of work. So if I hadn't done that, and I just started writing the body tweets, like it's written right here, if I didn't have the summary yet, then what I would have to do is go through here, scroll up and copy one, and then come down here and paste it, and then go up and copy one, and go back and forth, and it's tedious. And then I might figure out that this is all, like, it's not in any kind of order. So then if I want to order them so that they look nice, I then have to go back up here and like rearrange these tweets, and then that's tedious, and then I have to make sure the numbers are right, and it's just a mess. So that's a small little aesthetic optimization and a way that you can save yourself a bit of time. Okay, so now let's go back to our thread over here. So for our lead, we want to ask, what are the risks of having high blood pressure? And so it gives you all this stuff. It gives you basically a list of things. I usually do like list 10 risks or list 10 something, like give it a number, and then take 5 to 7 that you feel are most appropriate. And then for this one, I asked, how many adults worldwide have hypertension? So, okay, 1.13 billion adults. Adults worldwide have high blood pressure. Hypertension is associated with increased risk of Dan, can you see both screens?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to share your screen, I believe you can restart the screen share and share the screen rather than the tab. But while we're here, so I do want to, I'll add some nuance for the people that haven't gone through the other calls in the curriculum itself, because this is more like technical, going into like how to actually write a thread, which I'm frankly not the best at, hence why Joey is here. But the fourth call in the dashboard itself, the fourth call recording, should go over like hook generation, how to get ideas for them, how to align it with your content pillars, et cetera, et cetera. So once you have that down, then this is like the addition. This helps with all of it. Because right here, like the first thing that comes into my mind for people that haven't watched that yet is like, okay, but how do I come up with a topic? Like, how do I start? The fourth call in the dashboard itself will help you with that. Yes, Joey, all you.
Cool.
And I can see both now.
Nice. Okay, so this is Drafts, the program I was talking about. If I highlight this hook, then you see down here, again, it's really tiny, so you may not be able to see it if you're on mobile, but it says 67S, which means I have 67 characters selected, which means it will fit in a tweet, which is awesome. So going back over here to ChatGPT, it told me 1.13 billion adults worldwide have high blood pressure. Hypertension is associated with increased risk of aneurysms, stroke, heart disease, function, dementia. Yeah, that's good enough. Here are 5 simple ways to naturally lower your blood pressure. Okay, and then I would highlight that. 260 characters. I have 6 bullets here, so that's 266 total characters because these count as 2, like I said. So the lead's done now. So now all we have left to do for our thread is to write the body tweets. And I highly recommend anytime you want to write a thread that isn't based on something else like a video or a newsletter or something like that, you use this structure. I call this the skeleton of the thread, because the blank page is the hardest thing to edit. So when you're sitting here and you have no clue what to write about, you don't know how you're going to write about something, it can be extremely difficult to get something started. But if you just draft yourself a hook and then you get yourself a list of potential points, you may want to change these as you write, but as this starts coming together and as this overall document starts filling in, you'll have a much easier time of making further progress instead of just sitting around being stuck. So I highly recommend you get in the habit of at least setting up your thread using this framework here, because it gives you a starting point rather than you just sitting and looking at a blank screen. So we'll move on to our next point. And of course, with ChatGPT, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to add, this is kind of unrelated, and I don't want to butt in, but I realized something. Someone mentioned, Lessa mentioned, like the blank page is the hardest thing to edit. Mm-hmm. Another thing for people, like when you're thinking about it, when you're going into writing something long, it can be very daunting. And the other day when I was writing in Hemingway, another word editor, doesn't really matter which one you use at all, just find one, pick one. But it showed on the right where it was like you have zero, like you're using 0 versions of passive voice. Great work. You're writing at grade 0. Great work, because I hadn't written anything, right? So think about it from the perspective of like that, like the perfect is like not doing anything. And then imperfect is you actually creating. Like by creating something, it's going to be imperfect simply because like the more you do, the more you have the option to fuck up and then like learn from that and improve, right? So by leaving it the same, yeah, the page is perfect. It's blank. There's nothing there. No one can get angry at you. No one can say that your writing sucks, but nobody wants to do that. So you have to just embrace that it's going to suck. Back to you. Sorry.
So when you ask ChatGPT for a list, you can, of course, ask it to list more. This isn't really a ChatGPT tutorial, but just think about like you're having a conversation with this app. So you can ask it for more points if you weren't happy with what it gave you. And then you see here, I start asking it, well, expand on how improving your diet will lower my blood pressure. So that's when we start separating these out. And we'll work on this one first. So your diet saturated Okay. So I basically took pieces from this that it gave me when I asked it how you can eat better to lower your blood pressure. I took stuff that it gave me over here, pulled out things, and then made this actionable. And that's something that you don't always have, like the word action and value and stuff like that gets thrown around a lot when it comes to content. But generally you do want to try, if you can, making at least parts of your thread actionable. Like, what can somebody do to solve their problem or achieve the goal you're talking about? Things like that. So here we
got a question for you, Joey.
Yeah.
So I was actually talking to my sister because she finally decided, like, oh, I want to start doing this writing stuff. And she had a good question that this brought up to me. So when you're writing this and when you're pulling inspiration from like Chat GPT, or you're doing research, right? How do you how do you know, or hmm, how how do you feel credentialed enough? Not credentialed, but like how do you feel like you can be the authority on this? Like how do you feel like, okay, I'm putting in here like eating less preservatives, saturated fats, artificial trans fats. Like what makes me the expert on saying this? I feel like that can trip a lot of people up when they're writing this, specifically because they're researching it and they're like, oh, I wouldn't necessarily, like, maybe I didn't know this. Maybe I'm just learning this now.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that?
It's a good question. So I would say, for the most part, your followers don't really care about your credentials and your degrees and all that stuff. What they care about is how you present yourself, the quality of stuff you talk about, and especially the social proof of the people that you've helped and the things that you've done. So, like if you've lost a dramatic amount of weight, made some kind of transformation there, so on and so forth. So, there's kind of implicit authority in that. So, when you write a Twitter thread like this, or when you have a piece of content like this for any platform, I personally feel like there's implied authority. Like I'm saying this because I've done some sort of research. But that does relate to something interesting that I was thinking about when I was writing these, because if you are a vegan, for example, you're probably not going to tell people to eat fatty fish and lean meats. If you're a carnivore, you're not going to tell people to eat whole grains. If you are really against the like mainstream advice about fats, you aren't going to tell people not to have saturated fats. So as you are doing this research, whether it's with ChatGPT or Google or anything else, you have to, hopefully you're writing about something that you do know a little bit about and you have an interest in. So you're not just writing content to write content. You're writing this content to make yourself better, but also make your audience better. So there's like, you care about what you're doing. So when you care about what you're doing and you're doing something like this, then you're probably going to read things from ChatGPT or Google where you're like, I don't really know about that. And so you question stuff. So you could be like, why would I eat fatty fish? Like, how could that lower my blood pressure? Or there's a lot of bros on Twitter who talk about like, oh, you can eat all the salt you want, and you can, like, smoking cigarettes is good for you. Oops. Things like that. So it's important there to kind of dig in further and see if you can figure out what the truth is. Somewhat subjective a lot of times, but see if you can figure out some kind of consensus about, how risky something is, or whether something actually is a good thing to do or not. Like eggs, for example. There are some people, like the mainstream advice is that eggs are terrible for you and you should only have like one every 68 days. But then a lot of Twitter bros are like, yeah, I eat like 15 eggs a day and I'm totally fine. Like, it can get really confusing. So trying to dig in further will make you more educated, and it will help you produce more accurate content. And if nothing else, even if you find these studies that show a result that you agree with, and then you post this content, and then somebody else who's fairly educated shows studies showing the opposite, well, at least you're getting more educated. And if like both sides are willing to educate themselves further, then that's something that you can look at and see, okay, do I agree with this new research or this new position, this new perspective, line of thinking, whatever the case may be. And if you don't, then you can stick to your side. But just don't become somebody who reads something from ChatGPT or reads something in a BuzzFeed article, and you read it once, maybe you try it once, and you're totally for it and you won't ever listen to anybody, or you're totally against it and you won't ever listen to anybody, because that's a sign of somebody who doesn't care about getting better and doesn't care about making their audience better. They just care about making content and being right, or thinking that they're right. That's not exactly accurate, but hopefully that makes sense. Dan, did that help the question?
Yeah. For those that are in the live call, I'm speaking to the recording people, but Micah is throwing some heat in the chat. So let Alan Watts cleanse your limiting beliefs around this. But at the same time, so when you're writing a thread, the other thing is that you have to realize that you're posting free content, right? And people are going to call you out at times. You have to be okay with that. But as other people are saying, is like, just make the intention to try to put across accurate information, as accurate as you can, in alignment with your beliefs, goals, etc. But at the same time, realize that it's free content, and that if people don't like it, that's fine. But at the same time, I would hope that you are open and minded enough to accept that challenge, whatever they challenge in your argument, and then you can go, and that's how you learn, right? If you're closed-minded to it and you don't take the time to research what they said and potentially change your mind about the topic, then I don't know, then you may get canceled. In worst case scenario, probably not. But yeah.
Well, another example that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, so I'm a productivity guy. That's the main thing that I talk about. And so when I write content about focusing better, single tasking, getting into deep work by doing something for more than a few minutes at a time, almost always I'll have people attack me because they have ADHD or they have some other condition that makes it so that they can't do that. So they'll get upset with me. Sometimes they'll call me ableist or hateful or something like that. I don't really ever let it bother me. But the thing is I personally don't know much about ADHD. It's not something that I haven't gotten into that field of cognitive science yet. I might one day, and it's also not something that I have personal experience with, because I don't think I have it. Therefore, since I don't have it, and since I haven't really read anything about it, then I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm not going to make prescriptions based around that kind of thing. So it's better for those people to follow creators that are talking about that kind of thing in a way, because other people's content may be more appropriate for them. So my point here is that typically your content probably isn't going to apply to absolutely everybody. Like, again, if this thread gets posted and there's a vegan reading it, like, well, they could get pissed off because they're like, oh, I'm a vegan and I'm not going to eat fish and I'm not going to eat meat. And it's like, okay, well, I wasn't talking to you. So go read what to eat for vegans to lower your blood pressure. So try not to let it bother you. Just don't get in internet arguments because it's pointless.
You got called an ableist by Abe.
Nice.
He was joking. Dude, I don't like that topic. Dude, I've been called like an ableist as many times as I've had ADHD people tell me that my content is the most helpful thing in the world.
Nice.
It's so weird. And Devin, the support guy in here, is ADHD, and so when people come in, I tell him to go and comment on them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do. I try to understand and be mindful of it, but at the end of the day, it may take away from the impact of you can't please everyone.
Yep. Yeah. So try not to be everything to everybody. Be something to the people that you want to be something to. All right. So continuing onward, I'm probably not going to finish all 5 of these tweets because we have a few other things to get to here in a minute, but I'll do this one other one before we move on. So how does smoking increase blood pressure? So you may be wondering, well, where'd that come from? Why that framing? Well, that's because one of the points that I gotten earlier when I asked what are ways to lower your blood pressure, one of those points was to stop smoking. And so that I could better understand that underlying mechanism, I asked it, how does smoking increase blood pressure? So if you're telling me to stop doing something, I want to understand how doing that something is having the reverse effect. Hopefully that makes sense, because that's the approach I'm going to take here with this tweet. So it's really hard for me to write while I'm talking, but let's see. Nicotine consumption causes narrowing of blood vessels. Damaged blood vessels. Increased buildup. Increased. Okay, so one thing that this is a trick, this is a little trap that you don't want to fall into, because all three of these points are going to be about blood vessels. So I don't want to write the words blood vessels in every single point. So I'm going to separate those out. Damage. Not sure how I'm going to do that quickly, though. How do I do it over here? Oh, I didn't even finish writing that tweet in that version. Cool. Thanks, Past Joy. Okay. Let's go back to that. Increased black buildup in blood vessels. So you wouldn't want to have, like, it wouldn't be best to have blood vessels here because it's just repetitive and it's taking up valuable real estate, but you can figure out how to separate that out. It's nicotine consumption causes. And then I would say, like, obviously the actionable piece of this is to stop smoking, but you typically want to end with a one-liner that kind of caps it off to makes it complete. Because ending on a list like this, like, it's not great. It doesn't flow that well. So what's a good ending liner here? Quitting smoking can lead to improvements. Blood pressure improvements within days. Let's make that even better. Blood pressure improvements can be seen within days of quitting smoking. So that sentence kind of caps that off. And this over here supports it, where your blood pressure drops within 20 minutes of quitting. I don't really consider a break of 20 minutes quitting, but, you know. So if you want to be more careful, you could say within months, but that's kind of up to you. Okay. Then the final thing we would do there is highlight the whole tweet, make sure that it's under our character limit, and we're good to go. So you would do that same process for the other three tweets, number 1, number 4, number 5 in this thread. So then once the thread's done, once you're happy with it, nothing's ever perfect, so don't wait for perfection. But once the thread's done, you're good to go for Twitter. So you can post this up. You can put it into Tweet Hunter, Hype Fury. I think Zlapo is dead now. Type Fully may still work. Not sure. But I use Tweet Hunter. All of my clients use Tweet Hunter. So I would just use Tweet Hunter. So that's Twitter threads. Dan, any questions or anything that you think I should expand on with those?
No, not really. I think the main question in chat right now is from BB King, assertiveness or just confidence in what you're saying, and in many cases, like speaking in absolutes. And the way that I like to think about it, not everyone will think about it, but I think this is a good perspective shift, is that, one, like everything is subjective that you post online, like literally everything. I think I personally give the person reading the responsibility of being open-minded and nuanced with what I'm saying, because I can make like very straight to the point absolute statements. I've been called absolutist many times, or like, oh, this is an absolutist take. It's like, yes, but that's not the point. The point is the point of the tweet, like the essence of what I'm getting at, and me exaggerating something or saying like the greatest skill imaginable is learning to write online and then breaking that down. It's like, clearly there's other great skills. Like that's obvious. But at the same time, it's like I'm trying to explain the power of writing. I'm trying to get across why I think it's so important, because if I dance around the point and I'm like, writing's good, it's a good skill you can learn, maybe it's like maybe you'll benefit from it, rather than, no, this is the best skill you can learn imaginable right now. Start. These are the benefits, blah, blah, blah. It's more likely to get people to actually try it, get people to act, get people to use it, get people to get results with it. Because if everyone's just wishy-washy talking about nothing, they're not going to try anything. They're not going to get results. Again, this is like absolute in the other sense. Yeah, some people are going to try it. It's just a balance. Like you can go all back and forth all day about it. I personally like to be blunt because this is what I like. I like to write in the way that I like to perceive things. And so when something's given to me where it's like, you're an idiot if you don't do X, Y, Z, and I'm like, you're damn right. And then I start doing it, right? But if that's what I mean, is like, just be confident in what you're saying, is if you truly believe it. And if you have the nuance in your head and you know that you're not putting across something that can hurt people. Like me saying, I mean, I don't know, do what you want. But at the same time, me saying like the greatest skill imaginable is writing online. Or if you eat junk food, then you're going to die in 5 hours. That's okay. That's a bad one. But you get what I'm saying, where get the essence of the post across with your words and use it as like a pointer. Don't think about things so literally in terms of writing. Like you're writing literal words, but you're pointing towards something else. You're pointing towards the point.
True. And the thing about adding nuance is that you can never add enough nuance in most cases to really make it worthwhile. Like if you post something and you say, like if I posted like journaling is the best habit or brain dumping is the best habit, like I might believe that. And then I would have people telling me like, oh no, that's not the best habit. Like walking is the best habit, or using Zens is the best habit. And it's like, that's not a good example, but I just don't care. Like if people want to argue with me, I'll probably just reply with some GIF or something like that because it's funny to me. But okay, so you've written a Twitter thread, you're feeling pretty good about it, or you're not feeling pretty good about it and you need to write some more. That's just part of the process. It's all good. Then what? You've posted your Twitter thread and now you want to use it for other platforms. So this is another thing that I've been doing for myself and my ghostwriting clients, and that's repurposing content from Twitter to other platforms. So you see my little baby Instagram profile here because I've been neglecting it, but I want to utilize tweets and threads on other platforms. So for example, I had this thread about sleep, like how to sleep better, and you can see that I have it here on Instagram, and it got like 700 and something likes, which is really good for me. Here's another one about how to focus better that has like 3,800 likes. Again, really good performance. Carousels are still doing pretty well on Instagram. So how do you make those? Well, there used to be a service called TweetPic. They got kind of screwed up by the API changes that Twitter made a while back. I don't really use TweetPic because I just like using Canva better personally. It does take a little bit more time to use Canva. But anyway, when you start off, you go into Canva and I'm using Dakota's account because I'm on his team. you make a template that is these dimensions, so 887 by 1111. So you make a new template, it's going to be blank. And then to make it look nice, well, you have two choices at this point. Let's delete that. Let's make that black. Let's delete that. Okay. So now we just have a simple template here. So you have two choices. Let's say you're starting with this. You could, and I'll show you how to do the two choices, but you could make something like this, which is what I like doing for myself. And I don't know if Dan uses Canva anymore, but I like making this for myself and my clients. But when you're starting out, especially if you're starting on Twitter before Instagram or LinkedIn, you have a lot of social proof of having the engagement shown in the image. So you can see back over here, this is just like my names, my picture, and the text. It doesn't show any kind of engagement. So if I post this on Instagram and I have like 2.5 followers, then I don't have any kind of social proof at all. And so it may not get as much engagement as it could. But if I've been posting over here on Twitter and I'm doing pretty well over here, if it'll load, that would be great. Please load. Okay. And I have this tweet and it's gotten 200 likes, which is pretty good. Then what I would do is take a screenshot of it, which you can do with right click in Firefox. So highlight the whole tweet, copy it.
If I may,
yes,
I want to give a better alternative to this, because from a design background, I hate the look of like desktop Twitter, because it makes the line, like when I write with mobile Twitter in mind, with like my lists and not making them too long, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I recommend doing is exactly what you did, where you go to your profile. Where you go to your profile on your phone, and then you screenshot it there. Like here, can you close screen share real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm on my profile, right? And if I scroll down to, let's say, this tweet, and then what I do is I screenshot it, bing, and then you crop exactly how he showed with the engagement, where now it'll look like this, right? Because then to me, that's a lot more like appealing. And then what I do in Canva is I create just a square, like 1000 by 1000, mobile Canva. Create 1000 by 1000, and then you turn the background black, and then you add that picture in, and then you just drag it to align perfectly. And to me, that looks a lot better. And then if you want to hide like the 1 hour timestamp or something down here, then you just take like a black rectangle or a black square, and then you put it over it. Oh, it says you said you can't see my screen. Hopefully that it's through like the webcam. So hopefully you could at least like understand what it is, where it's like go to your profile on Twitter, screenshot the tweet from there with the engagement on it, crop it, and then go to Canva and then turn the background black on a square image, 1,000 by 1,000, black background, put the image, align it perfectly, and then you can block out other things with like a square, a black square or something. And then it looks a bit better just because I feel like the mobile version looks a lot more readable, better. It's not so drawn out, like the sentences aren't spanning so long like they are in the desktop version. It just looks better, and I really do feel like that helps. Like paying attention to how everything looks on your profile is very important.
Nice.
Back to you, Joseph.
All right. Okay. So there's that version, and then the other version, which I do for clients, is this here. So the way that I've made this is you look at a tweet, and then you zoom way in, and you take a screenshot of that. Save the screenshot, and you'll see that the profile picture got blurred. Well, now it's not. So you could download your own profile picture or upload your profile picture to something where you can crop it into a circle. You can probably do that with Canva. I don't know how to do it. But there's a tool, just Google like crop image into circle, and you'll get a circle profile picture. Because like this one, if I download this file, it's going to be a square. It's not a circle. But you'll wind up with this and this when you upload them to Canva. And then that's what these are. So you just drag them over, resize them, and you're good to go. And then this, the font's kind of up to you. I use the Niue Montreal font because it's fairly close to Twitter's font. But again, that's kind of your choice. Okay. So then what I would do, if I was making a post based on that thread, I would put the hook on the first slide, obviously, and then duplicate that. No, not duplicate that. Sorry. I'm in the process of making new templates for myself. So delete that. Okay. You're probably wondering what the heck I'm doing. So with the first slide, you want to make it so that the hook and your profile images are centered. I think that looks nicer. I know people have different styles, but this is just the way I do it. So you have the hook centered here. This is a really old thread. So I would actually probably do it. That's a terrible example, actually. Let's do Justin's.
I was there an image of me from my YouTube video in there.
It's from where I was making that thing for the group chat.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's why the Aqua Teen things are there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, this is quite a beefy thread hook, but let's say I was making a post based on this. So I would center the text like this on the first slide. So the hook has the first slide, or the first slide has the hook. Then I would go down to the next one. So I would scroll down, copy all this stuff, highlight all that. This is very important. Command-Shift-V. Because if you don't Command-Shift-V, it's going to be like that. Because Canva needs to be told to Command-Shift-V, which is, say, preserve formatting, paste with formatting. So you have to Command-Shift-V every time you post something that's on multiple lines into Canva. So I would do that. I would then duplicate that slide, come over here, grab tweet number 3, highlight all, Command-Shift-V, so on and so forth. Like that. Now I keep doing that. But here's one key thing you have to keep in mind before you even start this process. Instagram has a maximum upload of 10 slides for a carousel. So obviously you have to make sure when you're making one of these that you're not making one that's like 17 slides, because then you won't be able to upload it all to Instagram. So you kind of have to think about like how many points you have, how many body tweets you have, whether you want to, you could ask yourself, like, is there a way I could maybe reword these 2 tweets to make it one slide? Can I get away with just removing this entire tweet and just posting or just copy and pasting this tweet into a slide? That's where you got to get a little bit creative and figure out how to rework the content of the thread, if it's a really long thread, down into 10 posts. And that's not something that I could really explain much further. That's just a process that you've kind of got to choose for yourself. So then you would keep doing that. You would wind up with 10 or less slides. I write a lot of listicle style threads. So those are usually like kind of like the blood pressure thread that we were working on earlier. That would be a hook, that would be a lead, and then it would be like 5 to 7 points, and then the summary tweet. And that is 7 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 10. So those fit perfectly fine. So once that would be all done, let's say I have my 10 slides. I would then go up to share, download, PNG, and then it's downloaded. Now let me go find that. 1 second. PM. Okay, so that's going to be downloaded as a zip file. Then you would go to Instagram. So I've got the folder up on my other screen. I would copy, or I would drag over the images of that carousel. I would click down here in the bottom, make it 4 by 5. So that way it's the rectangle instead of a square. Make sure that these are in the correct order. Click next. I don't want to apply filters. And then I would write a caption. I would probably say something that's like a typical CTA, like follow me for more on topic XYZ, something like that. That's kind of up to the client because they typically schedule their Instagram stuff, not me. Could add more detail to the post. Like you can see with this thread, I added a bit more context. That's kind of a lot of work, though, and I wouldn't really advise doing that. Lately, I've switched more to just maybe asking a question or just making a statement that's relevant to my post. As you can see here, like I said, I'm working on figuring out new templates for myself. I would look at creators that you like Dan, for example, and see what they're doing and kind of come up with your own style for the captions. So then I would, caption goes here, follow me or else. And that's it. I would hit share and it'd be good to go. So that's how to take a Twitter thread and get it ready for Instagram. Now there's one other piece back over here to our thread in Canva. Download PDF standard. Wait 10 years for it to download. Downloads. Okay. And then what we would do is click on add a document. I've got some client stuff in that folder, so I can't do that because then it'll come up and spoil the confidentiality of clients. But you click on add a document, and then that PDF file will be added to your post. And then I don't know why Dakota hasn't done one in literally forever. Let's see. I know this guy that I started following. He's been doing some lately, I think.
Oh my god, I haven't noticed so what I heard from both Justin and Justin Welsh and like Ben Meir, uh, is I don't know if this is like true in terms of the LinkedIn algorithm, but I know that it makes sense from like any content perspective, is that
Mm-hmm.
like people engage with what they initially followed you for.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, none of my like carousels on Instagram with the PDF wouldn't get much engagement. But then when I posted it as just text, because like if your thread can fit, if your thread is written in a way that can fit 10 Instagram slides, then it usually fits LinkedIn characters count. And so when I do that, I get more engagement that way. And so that may be why Dakota's doing it now, where like I just like copy pasting the tweets.
Yeah.
And that seems to get me more engagement. But yeah, Instagram, it's like clearly you can only do a carousel.
Right. Okay. Well, it sounds like the meta there may have changed. I know the carousels were performing a lot better. This is what it would look like when you upload a PDF to LinkedIn. Those used to perform a lot better, but it sounds like maybe that's not the way things are now. So how you would do it then instead is to take your thread. Where did drafts go? Take your thread. Obviously, like you want to remove the labels like the hook, lead, stuff like that. But I personally think it's a good idea whenever you write long form content or medium form content like threads and things things like that. I personally think it's a good idea to store those somewhere, because you're probably going to wind up like referencing them or repurposing them or something like that. And if I wanted to do something with this thread, but then I have to go on Twitter and find it on Twitter and then like copy and paste it over and go back and forth between tabs, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So I would at least use Google Drive and Google Docs to save your content so that it's all in one place. I just have it all in drafts, but it may make sense for you to use Google Docs or something like that. It's totally up to you. Because drafts has, if I click this button, it'll display like probably 300 different threads, but a lot of those are client threads, so I haven't been showing that part of it. So anyway, you would just copy, paste that. Obviously, like I said, you would go through and remove the labels. My Firefox is really laggy for some reason today. I need to restart my computer. Go through and remove that. Probably remove the summary. I don't know what the rules are there. When you're just posting this as a text post instead of PDF slides.
I think you're fine. The summary's good.
Okay. So put that back in there. Yeah. Then you just make sure that it fits. I think the character limit on LinkedIn is 2,800 characters. That's what it was a month or two ago. So just kind of be aware of that. Again, if you're using like drafts or Microsoft Word or something like that, it'll tell you how many characters you've used. So just be mindful there. And then you can post it up. So that's the two ways of doing that. Yeah. So recap of what we just covered. Ways to start a Twitter thread quickly using ChatGPT. Then how to create images for those. There's a couple options there. Put it up on Instagram. You can either just put the text on LinkedIn. Sounds like that's better now than making a carousel, but we also covered that just in case. And yeah, Dan, anything that I missed?
No, not on your end. In terms of here, I'll share my screen if you want.
Okay.
I'll show my channel. We are almost at 300K. Screen share. Window. Yes. Okay. You can see this?
Yep.
All right. So this video, 8 minutes, 11 seconds, was written as a Twitter thread. Yeah. So, like, same deal here, where it's literally the same exact thing. So if you've like watched that video, you know that I almost read this word for word. And the way that I wrote this is so there's a few things coming into play here, where I tested this idea so many different times before. And now everyone on YouTube is doing it, or they did do it. Like even Mark Manson and Tom Bilyeu like used this same hook. I can't really like take credit for coming up with the hook, but it's somewhat upsetting because like I've been how to get ahead. I've been writing it since like the beginning. Oh, motherfuckers. Okay. I can't take credit for it either way, but this is what I did, right? So at the beginning, like when I was first starting out, I realized that this was performing well, where it's like how I get ahead of everyone in 6 to 12 months, or how I blow past other people in 6 months, something like that. And the tweet was consistently doing well, so I worked it in every like 3 months or so, and I noticed that. And so this year, or last year, I wrote this thread, and it did very well. And so during this time is when I was testing on YouTube, like shorter videos. Like this one was an old thread of mine, did very well. This was a thread that I wrote after. This was a thread. All of the shorter ones were threads. This one was a thread that did really well. And I tried that. I personally am not going to keep doing it, maybe here and there if the thread does really well. But that's just like, it goes to show that the threads that you write can be used as YouTube scripts. And so what I do is I just like open the thread on my phone, sit in front of the camera, read it, like look at my phone, read the hook, and then read the second tweet, or like look at my phone again, put it down, read to the camera. And when I forget something, it doesn't really matter with a YouTube video because that's what cuts are for. That's what B-roll's for. If I want to look down at my phone and read a list section, there aren't many list sections here, but you've seen this in my videos if you watch my videos, where when I have like a list, I usually just look down at my phone and read it. And then when I'm editing, or when Devin's editing, it's a sign to him of, okay, either add B-roll over this or add a text screen, right? So you don't necessarily have to always be looking at the camera when you're saying something. You can look down and you can add a text screen, or you can add like background video B-roll over it. And so that's just a unique and somewhat easy way to repurpose content to all platforms that we talked about here, where you're writing threads, you're posting to Instagram, you're posting to LinkedIn, and then you can read it and post it to YouTube. And if you have validated ideas before, which you can see just from your top tweets, then you know, okay, I can turn this into a thread because I know it's going to do well. And then I know it's going to do well on YouTube and on Instagram and on LinkedIn. So this is why it's important to just continue writing content and see what your best ones are, make them better, and then eventually, like, all of your content across all platforms just becomes very, very good. So this one, simple thing, right? This is kind of more a feel-good tweet. I didn't get many followers from this, but normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand. I could take that and just do normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand. Here's 6 steps to stop caring what people think. Wait, no, that doesn't. Not having an opinion on things you don't understand. Here's 6 ways to stop overreacting to minor inconveniences. And then write the thread, and then this can be the YouTube title, right? Sometimes those work where it's just a statement where it's like, stop doing this, or like the big idea, whatever it is. So that's just a way where if you don't, like, I don't expect really anyone to do like super long YouTube videos, like 41 minutes, even 30 minutes, but like a 8-minute video that's very straight to the point, well articulated because you wrote it as a thread first. That's a great way to start on like YouTube, especially if you're not going off the cusp where like it just makes sense. Where if you're just going straight into a YouTube video with nothing on your mind, it may be good. It may be good, but it's so much better to write and think about your like ideas you're trying to put across so that they are good, right? So yeah, as Donal said, like those longer videos look daunting to make. That was like practice. Like it's really, I don't want to like gatekeep. It's like, if you want to try, go do it. But at the same time, and that's the only way you can get better at doing it. But like I've like accumulated all of these ideas over time where it's like I'm starting to weave things in and out over 4 years of just doing this. So it's becoming a lot easier for me to do. And maybe it's something you aspire towards, is doing the longer form stuff. But like the point here is that you don't need to do that by any means. At Ricky. So like Ricky, this is why I recommend the newsletters as well. So you say the long videos seem intense and probably take weeks to make. Kind of, sort of. It's the newsletter. So yeah, Daniel, as you said, so I write the newsletters on a weekly basis, and the process behind that is like I write it every day, and I walk, or like I kind of gather ideas for it throughout the day. And so the newsletter is much more articulated and long, right? And I have those ideas in my head, and then that is what allows me to make the longer YouTube videos, is that I've just thought about those ideas so much. And piece them all together in a newsletter. So it could take 2 weeks. Like I'm kind of dragging on here. Like I have plans to decrease output because I want to, Denal, the newsletters and videos are the same. They're just different mediums. I read it to the camera. But that's I can't read chat and talk at the same time. But I kind of want to go like every 2 weeks and just write like 10,000 word newsletters and then do 1.5 hour long videos and decrease output, because I feel like that would be more valuable to those that want it. But yes, so there's one more question. We have a Q&A session, so we'll end soon. But can you record yourself writing a complete newsletter? Oh, that'd be difficult. It happens sporadically. Like me writing in Notion, I don't just sit down and do it. I write ideas in Notion, like in my notes on my phone, throughout like all day, really, as ideas come to me, and then put it in the newsletter when I write in the mornings. And then last question. So do you just read the newsletter, or do you do some repurposing to turn it into a script specifically? I read the newsletter the same way I do the thread, where I look at it, and then it's like I'll read a paragraph or two, and then I'll try to recite it to the camera. And a lot of the times other thoughts will come to my head, and so I riff for a bit, but then when I lose track, it's like, okay, stop, go to the place in the newsletter where I was at, and then look at the camera, read again, possibly riff, and then go along those lines. But if something has to be said, like if I knew that there was one line that was a banger, I would, like, I'll look down at my thing and make sure that I say it and put a text screen over it so I don't mess it up. And so I retain the impact of what I'm saying there. Dylan, I find the idea interesting of repurposing content from your newsletter to videos and threads, but I feel like I'm cheating my audience. I felt the same way, but through experience, I like it more. They like it more because it's different mediums, and it's like, think about it this way, right? Would you rather split your focus so many different ways on so many different ideas to provide new content to each platform and have all of those ideas watered down because you only have so much creative ability in your head every single week? Or would you focus all of your attention on giving the best, like absolute best idea, articulating well and making it super impactful once a week, and then speaking about that from like all different angles and different mediums? So visual, podcast, and the audience is different. Some people are on Twitter, and so if I post something different to YouTube, but something good was on Twitter, then it's like the YouTube audience is missing it, right? And so lost my train of thought, but that's pretty much it. It's not as big of a deal as you think. I don't think, I haven't seen, maybe I've missed it, but absolutely nobody from what I've noticed has said that they don't like the content repurposed to all platforms. Anything else from you, Joy?
Can't really think of anything. Well, one thing I would say about this process, and I talked about this the other day, is writing, it's a skill that's a lot like a muscle, and you build it up with consistent effort. So something I've seen countless times over the past few years as I've talked about this kind of thing, and a rut that I've gotten into every now and then, is wanting perfection. So I've gone through periods where I barely tweeted or didn't write a thread for months, or, you know, like right now I haven't posted a YouTube video in a few weeks because it's so easy for us to get stuck in this mental rut of, well, I just don't feel like I can create anything good enough. And it's great of you to want to produce quality content, but if you're not posting any content, then you're kind of screwing yourself and your audience. So getting in the habit where, like, developing a system for yourself where no matter what, each week you're producing a certain number of tweets, maybe threads, a newsletter, a YouTube video, Instagram post, LinkedIn post. Obviously, you don't want to overwhelm yourself, because that's going to lead to burnout, resentment, frustration. But it's so important to have a minimum target to shoot for with your content, and you just get in this phase. You got to get in this phase where it's like, yeah, this isn't as good as I wanted it to be, but I'm sending it out anyway. And that's a mental note. You make a mental note for yourself where, okay, well, yeah, you could ask yourself like, well, why didn't I execute on that as well as I wanted to? Were my standards too high? Did I not have the time? Were there physical or mental performance issues? Did I not do enough research? What was the issues there? And then you can improve over time. Maybe you need to give yourself a little bit more time to write the next newsletter or the next Twitter thread. Maybe you need to do better research. Maybe you need to go back and watch one of the videos from these sprints or something like that to like dial back in the process of writing this kind of content. But that's the thing, is you got to look at this as something that you're going to iterate on for the next like months and years, instead of being like, well, I've got to be perfect now. All the people that you look up to, 99% of these big creators that you love have been at this for years. So if you're going to get into this and you want to commit to doing it for a long time, then accept that this is going to be a long game of iterating and improving over time, and you're not necessarily going to have perfection up front. So as long as you're getting a little bit better each week and you're still consistently posting stuff, then you're on the right track.
Yep. Mindset pill from Joey. They like it. Okay. Okay, we have Q&A session, but I feel like I have to answer. No more questions after these two. Okay, David, in short, do you think spending hours editing and shooting fancy B-roll is a waste of time? On my videos, Devin actually spends a lot of time editing like the space between the cuts, right, to maintain impact, because, man, it takes a lot of time to do that and to get him right. Like AI stuff, he's tried it. It doesn't cut it perfectly. And so that's what he spends a lot of time on, is so that it still flows. But fancy B-roll and other stuff, I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it can really enhance your videos. It's really dependent on just what you can put out, what's working well, what you enjoy watching yourself. Like if you like the Hamza or Hormozy style, like rapid, fast, fancy fire graphics and stuff, and it's like, do that. Try it out. But at the same time, I think the ideas matter the most. Like if Hormozy didn't have any editing, I think he would still be doing very well. I actually met his editor today at a coffee shop, so that was cool. But last question from Hayden: how do you stop yourself from overcomplicating your message? You don't. It's so difficult not to. So like there's like a contradiction here, where it's like you're trying to get the point across so that your audience understands it, but then in terms of overcomplicating, like there's just some points where you have to trust that your audience will get it. And so it's that like push-pull, where educate your audience and try to make it as clear as possible. But at the same time, like with more abstract topics, it's like they'll get it. Like they'll try to understand. It's like when I read a book, if it's complicated or there's too much, it's like I still try to get what he's saying. And if I don't, I don't know. It doesn't affect my perception of the author themselves. All right. That is it. We have Q&A call on Wednesday, same time. Save your questions for then. And think of some spicy questions, preferably ones that we haven't already answered in the sprint calls. But if we have to repeat, no problem. Aside from that, other Q&A call the Wednesday after. We'll send out emails as they come. Recording for this will be uploaded sometime later today. Daniel, no, it's not Thursday. I know that it said the word Thursday. I changed that, but the date itself was Wednesday. So it's still the 24th. So Wednesday. That's it from me. If anything else comes to mind, I'll put it in the email that lets you know that the recordings were up. And that'll be up sometime before the end of the day, you never know what can go on with uploading that stuff. So yeah, last time sucked because when I ended the call, the first recording didn't save. And so I reached out to Webinar Jam, and they're like, oh, nope, it's lost. And I'm like, okay. And so I had to re-record it with Loom and then stitch the two together. And so that's why it took so long. So recording will be up. Appreciate everyone that showed up. Appreciate everyone that asked good questions. Shout out Micah for dropping some heat. Follow him, Philosophy of Awareness. You have deep fucking understanding of all this stuff, dude. I admire that. So, adios. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, Joey.
See y'all.